I'm going to show you how to replace the cap on a Dexcom, a hacked Dexcom with the replaceable caps. What we'll do is we'll pull off the cap, we'll replace the batteries, secure them in there using the super glue, and then seal it up with the silicone, and then test it with the multimeter. You can test these two leads to see if the connection has actually been made. The batteries that we're going to use, so here is, actually let's use this one. Here is the cap. It's got these little indentations in here because it uses the larger Maxell buttons, which is bigger than what the standard Dexcom batteries are. There are some caps without the indentation. It's just flat all the way across. And if you have one of these, you'll have to use the smaller batteries. But the bigger batteries will make your Dexcom last longer before you have to replace them. Okay, so first of all, when you get this, come on, focus. When you get this, it'll already be sealed with silicone. So you'll want to just sort of score it a little bit along the edges here on each side, and then pop it off. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Is I'm just going to do a little bit of score to get the cock loosened a bit. Okay, and then I'm going to take a screwdriver, and you don't want to do anything to the back side of the Dexcom. You want to do everything from the front side. This is really fragile and it will snap. So then you just take a screwdriver from the tip on the head of it and just twist. You can see the silicone. You have to pry the silicone out. And for this example, I didn't have any available that were actually dead. So in this example, I just put one in just to show you how to pry that one off. I did this last night in anticipation. So there's a little bit of silicone along here. So what you'll want to do before you put the new batteries in and the new cap is just to clean off all of the silicone that is left on the Dexcom. There we go. Good enough. Right. The batteries, there's the positive or the negative lead down here, and then the positive lead is off on the side here. Oops. Is off on the side here. And it's a really tight fit, and especially when you're using the larger batteries, it can wiggle around in there. And so it's best to put a little dot of super glue in there to keep it in there. So these will be in place. You'll want to just pry it off, just sort of score off the edge a little bit to get the super glue good, and then just pop it off. Oh wow, I did a really good job at this one. Got that off. Okay. There we go. Then I got it off. I'm going to reuse this battery since it's a good battery. And I just had it in there for one day, and it didn't have a complete circuit because we only had one of them in there. Okay, so now that you got this cleaned off, the silicone cleaned off, and you got the batteries out, now is the time to replace them with the good batteries. So what we're going to do is take the batteries. So try to stick with the brand names and not the Chinese crap. Okay, so they want to go down with the positive end up. And I have this tiny little what is it? C-clamp, just to hold it in place. I don't tighten it very tightly. It's in order just to save. You know, you can just hold it in place if you want and wait for the glue to dry. But to me, it seems like it's much easier just to put this in place and let it just hold it. So it's not tight. It's just in there holding it. And then I'm going to take the super glue, and the super glue is probably going to be dry. Oh, no, it's not. You want to stay away from the leads. So the lead is right here. So I'd say do each side, do a side on each side and away from the leads. Oops. Got that little C-clamp is in the way, but I can just get it in there. There we go. All right, and then we're gonna wait for this one to dry, and then we'll move on to the next one. While you wait for it to dry, it might be a good idea to take the cap and just scrape off the silicone on the cap. And then it wouldn't be a good idea, it wouldn't be a bad idea to clean it with alcohol. I know as a T1, you got plenty of that. Just get some isopropyl alcohol and clean up all the oils off of it. So it's got a good adherence to the cap and the Dexcom. And it comes off pretty easily. It's not that hard to get off. And there you go. And I'm still waiting for that first super glue to dry. And once that dries, we'll stick the second super glue on and then work on the cap. Now, I think that's dried. Let's find out. Good. Stays in place. Something you want to also take in mind is there's a little bit of a spring to the side here. It might be a good idea to just sort of make sure that there's always going to be a connection by pulling it out just a little bit, but not too much or you'll break it. It's already really fragile, so just pull that out a little bit. And we're going to add the second one in place, and this one's already tight enough. Actually, I don't even think I need the clamps. This was really tight. Nice. Makes it really easy. And we're going to take the super glue again. Now the lead is right here, so you want to be on a different side. Just a little dot. Just a little dot, just to hold it in place. And then we'll wait for that to dry. And in the meantime, let's talk about the silicone. So the silicone I use is ASI 388. It's electronic grade silicone. There's two different types of silicone, acid curing and natural curing, and you want the natural curing one. So you want the non-corrosive, and sometimes it's called electronic grade silicone. The reason that you want to use this silicone caulk instead of the normal kind that you can get at a hardware store is that it actually corrodes the batteries and the leads, and so that you can get some problems with that. So this one takes a little longer it takes a little longer to cure, but it doesn't corrode the metal. Okay, so it's not quite dry yet, but it's close enough for me to test the voltage. So before you put the cap on, before you put the silicone around here, you can see there's a little bit of wetness right there. you want to make sure that the leads are making a connection, that they're touching the bottom and on the sides of each of the battery ends. So you can do that by trying to pair it. That's the long route. If you have a voltmeter or a multimeter, you could use that. So if you turn it around, you'll see the two leads that connect to your sensor here. And so what you want to do is, I have a multimeter here. I'm just gonna hold it like this so you can see it. And then you want to connect it. It should be around 200, 215 millivolts. So it depends on how old the batteries are, the newer batteries. So this is 192. It's pretty close. It's good. So millivolts. So just make sure that you got about 215, around 200 to 215. All it does is if it's a lower voltage, it just means it's probably not going to last as long, but that's okay because you can just replace them. Okay, so now we're going to still, well, this is, actually I think it's pretty good. It's got a tight fit. So what I'm going to do is take the silicone and I'm going to pull it. Wait, actually, before we do that, let's clean it off with the alcohol. Make sure we got good adhesion. And on both the cap and the Dexcom. Okay, and then I'm going to take your cap. We got this guy here. I'm going to do the same thing. Get a nice, good C. But nice and clean. All right. So then we're going to go around with this, and we're just going to add a small bead. You don't want too much, because then it's going to be really difficult to take off. So, I think we've got, I think it dried on me. Okay, so what we want to do, there we go. Let's get some of that dried stuff off. All right, so then you just want to take a little bit out and just get it all the way around. Make it so it's a nice solid seal without, wasting or having too much gooiness. And back here I always added just a little bit more because I don't think it's quite as tight in the back. Okay, turning it around. You're going to get some on your hands. Okay, so now that I got all the way around, you can see it. Ooh, sticky. See it right there. We're going to take this and I'm going to put the back end, this end right here, on the back, and then snap it. Just like that. Okay, so now we just got to clean it up. So you got this, pull off. Ugh. And clean it up. Just get the excess off. The back here, the back here isn't as critical as the front. The front, this actually snaps into this part, right? Snaps into the sensor, so you want to make sure there's no obstructions there. So, just clean it off. And it might be a good idea to use something that will fit actually in there. And clean it off. And make sure you don't get any silicone on the leads. That would be really bad because then it's not going to work at all. All right, so now that you've got it working, perfect. Just wait for it to cure, and then pair it with your drip or spike app.